Great. Well, big thanks to Andy for leading us through this morning. And it's been great actually to have people taking part from home today. It's good for us that are in the building. It's lovely to see your faces and lovely to hear Paul and Di praying for us. It seems obvious, doesn't it, to mention New Year's resolutions this morning. It's only the 3rd of January, so I hope you're still hanging in there. I thought that I might try, and this is making it public, isn't it? I thought I might try and read the Bible through in a year this year. So it's 4 chapters a day. 1st of January, that was fine. Yesterday I've done 2, so I'm now running 2 behind already. And so maybe it might have helped me if I discovered this article from the Harvard Medical School of Publishing. 7 steps for making your New Year's resolution stick. So here we go. There's a lot more said about each of these, but let me just mention the headlines. Firstly, dream big. Audacious goals are compelling. So you need a big vision. Number 2, break big dreams into small enough steps. Now think tiny. Small little steps to move you towards the ultimate goal. Number 3, understand why you shouldn't make a change. And then it says, that's right, until you grasp why you're sticking like a burr, whatever that is, to old habits and routines, it may be hard to muster enough energy and will to take heart of the move left towards change. So what's causing you to stick? Why are you struggling to sort of change in those areas? You need to understand that, apparently. Number 4, commit yourself. And I've just done this, actually, in a way. Make yourself accountable through a written or verbal promise to people who will support you and sort of, run the race with you. Number 5, give yourself a medal. Don't wait to call yourself a winner until you've pounded through the last mile of your big dream marathon. Give yourself sort of rewards along the way. Number 6, learn from the past. I won't say any more on that one. Number 7, give thanks for what you do. Forget perfection. Set your sights on finishing that marathon, not on running it. So keep your eye on the goal at the end. Now, I sort of mentioned those. I know you're going to forget those, but I was amazed how many of those actually are in Hebrews 12, 1-3. Just different aspects of that crop up here. Hopefully your mind will remind you of them as we go along. It's a wonderful sort of 3 verses to start the year with. In a way, I think that we get the ultimate New Year's resolution from our writer here in these verses. There's lots happening in these verses. You may have picked that up when Andy read it. If you just scan your eyes through it again, you'll see lots of little clauses. And this is where actually verbs are quite helpful. Sorry if you're still in holiday mode. I know schools may or may not be going back, but the verbs here help us. The verbs, there are two main verbs in these 3 verses. And I view these as the big thick branch on the tree. And there are lots of other little subclauses that are sort of linked to the main ideas. And I think in these 3 verses we need to see, and we will see in the next 15-20 minutes, the 2 big ideas, the 2 big verbs that are dominating. And you'll see a little bit of the subclauses that help along the way. So the first big idea in this passage is there at the end of verse 1. It's the first sort of main verb where he says, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. That's the first verb. That's the big idea here. Let's run the race with perseverance right to the very end. And I think if you were to ask the writer to the Hebrews, for the sort of his big resolution for all of us this morning on the screen and in the building, his resolution would be this, that on the 31st of December 2021, you are still running the race that's marked out for you and you're running with perseverance. That's his big resolution for us this morning as we start a new year, that we're still running the race at the end of December 2021 and we're running with perseverance. Now, I know for some of us that might feel a little bit underwhelming. You might want something a little bit more exciting, as you turn the calendar to a fresh year, back into January again. You want something a bit more inspiring to fill your mind. And I guess I would like to say, if you've thought, and I hope you have, a little bit of thought moving into a new year about how this year might be for you as a Christian, how you might change, the things that you want to pursue, the things that you want to see happening in your Christian life. I hope you've got some other ideas, and I want to say it's no problem having more than one great goal for the year as a Christian. It'd be wonderful if there are certain things that inspire us as we think about the year to come. But what I would say is that if you don't have this as one of your resolutions, the others are going to fall away. Because if we're not running the race in December 2021 with perseverance, if we're not still persevering and running this marathon, then actually whatever other resolutions you may have this morning as a Christian are going to fall into dust if you're not still running. So it's a huge resolution to have, and it's very much in his mind. I think we mentioned earlier in this series on Hebrews, the writer here is like Desmond Doss. Some of us a couple of years ago would have seen the film Hacksaw Ridge. I did mention this earlier in this series on Hebrews. Desmond Doss was the first conscientious objector to be awarded the Medal of Honor. And if you've seen the film depicting what happened, he basically climbed netting up a cliff face and went at night in amongst wounded American soldiers and one by one dragged them to the edge of the cliff and lowered them down to medical teams. And he would go up night after night, fetching every living, breathing soldier who couldn't move, and he would rescue them. He didn't want to leave one soldier behind. And I think as we've gone through Hebrews, you can see that that's the heartbeat of this author. He doesn't want to leave one Christian behind. He wants, in December 2021, every single one of us still to be running the race marked out for us with perseverance. He doesn't want to leave one Christian behind. And as Andy's already shared, these few verses absolutely transport us to the athletics track. Think of a big sort of Greek arena with the seating or stone seating all going up all around the track. And there in the centre is the track. There's the beginning of the Christian race, the running of the race marked out for us, and the finish line. It's all there. He wants you to enter the Sabbath rest. He wants you to enter the promised land. He wants you to enter into the glory prepared for you. He doesn't want to lose anybody. So that's the big New Year's resolution at the end of verse 1. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Now, how's he going to help us to do that? Andy mentioned head coach. He's absolutely the head coach here. How does he want us to do that? And he starts off in verse 1 by saying, basically, that there are previous athletes who inspire us to engage wholeheartedly. Verse 1, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. All of the characters in chapter 11 that we've been through all last term are people who've lived by faith already. They've lived confident in what they hope for, sure of things as yet unseen, trusting God, trusting his promises, often in the most challenging of circumstances. They are witnesses of the life of faith. And it's not so much, the way he phrases it, it's not so much that they're all in on those stone seats around the track. You know, we're running on the track, they're all socially distanced around the track. It's not that they're there cheering us on in 2021. The idea here is that as we're running the race marked out for us, we glance to the side and we see Moses' parents sat there. And we remember that they were utterly convinced that God was at work in their life and in the life of their child. God was going to do something. And they took risks. They stepped out in faith. They had conviction. And so as we run, we see them sat there and we are inspired to engage wholeheartedly in this race. And then we go around the next bend and we see their son, we see Moses, who swapped royalty, the palace life, the pleasures of palace life, to associate with the disgraced people of God. And we see what Moses did, and we're inspired to engage wholeheartedly. It's a little bit like those athletes on Andy's slides. You imagine being a younger person. Imagine being a younger person in one of those countries, looking at that athlete, looking at that world record holder, that gold medal holder, and you look at their life, you look at their training, you look at their devotion, you look at what they've achieved, and you're inspired to then put in the hard yards. That's the idea that he puts before us in verse 1. Sorry, I'm rustling. So that's the idea as we go into verse 1, that we're inspired to wholehearted action and training by those that have gone before us. And he focuses in at the end of verse 1 on a couple of particular aspects of what that training will look like. He talks about throwing off everything that hinders, throwing off the sin that so easily entangles. And I guess athletes, particularly back in the day when the writer of the Hebrews is writing, you know, with the sort of clothes that they wore, the longer kind of robes. I think it's in the Prodigal Son, isn't it, that we read of the father sort of picking up his robes, tucking them in his belt and running out to the sun. Can you imagine being an athlete with a robe like that on? It's just not going to work. You've got to throw that off. The robe has got to come off. You don't want anything that it could entangle your legs or your feet. No objects. That excess holiday weight's got to come off if you're going to be an athlete. Throw it all off. We look at the runners that have run previously, and it's to inspire us to throw everything off, everything that hinders, all of the sin that might entangle us in 2021. It's all got to go. And it gets really useful, I think, just before, again, I know for some of us the madness of life is already there, but maybe if you've got another window left today, it's good, isn't it, to think, what is slowing me down as a Christian? What do I need to throw off? What has hindered my progress in 2020? If we haven't thrown it off, it's going to hinder our progress in 2021. It's not going anywhere, is it, unless we throw off all that hinders us, all that entangles us, the sin that entangles us. And of course, that's going to be play a part in all of our role, in all of our lives. So sin is there. It's not something actually that's going to go away until we've crossed the finish line. But what have we turned a blind eye to, might be a question worth asking. What have we become content to live with? Take decisive action, says verse 1. Throw it off. I think, and just keeping the sort of Olympic theme going, when, you know, I'm amazed when Steve Redgrave, I think he won gold, didn't he? Was it 5 consecutive Olympics? I mean, I don't know, is that 25 or 30 years? I don't you know, but that's a couple of decades and a half of utter sort of focus and devotion, the things that he had to get rid of in order to achieve such a feat. Tyson Fury, heavyweight champion of the world, lost his belt, went into a massive decline with depression and struggle, had to lose 10 stone of weight. It's almost my entire weight, that 10 stone. He had to lose it all to get back to then re-win that belt. Utter focus, throw everything off, everything stripped away. The language is broad, isn't it? Throw off everything that hinders. The runners that have run before, as we've gone through that chapter, encourage us to engage wholeheartedly. Throw off everything that's hindering you, Christian. Throw off all of the sin that is so easily entangling. I had a thought actually about this last night. I never know what to make of last minute thoughts that come in when you've been preparing. And I just felt quite challenged that sometimes we can fall into a bit of a trap, can't we, of thinking that the days of zeal and the days of passion as a Christian are those early years. It's a complete lie. Whether you've been a Christian 5 years or 55 years, this is the attitude. We don't become like an old worn-out chair, you know, in the corner of the room that's been there for years and got dusty and threadbare and whatever. We're to throw everything off. Everything that hinders you. The sin that so easily entangles you, throw it off. It's a wholehearted engagement. And he moves on then as we go into verse 2. The second thing to help us to keep running, to be enduring to the end of the year, he says, is to fix our eyes on Jesus. The word fix here is a little bit technical. It's got more in it than you'd think. One commentator said it's a concentrated attention that turns away from all distractions with eyes only for Jesus. So the thing that will help us keep running is to fix our eyes on Jesus, but it's to clear all other distractions and fix our eyes on him. Again, it's the story, isn't it, of the athlete who's just won gold, just gone through 4 years of just self-denial and training and everything, takes perhaps a 2-week holiday to lie on the beach with their gold medal around their chest, And then they arrive home, they flick their calendar forward 4 years, they ring the date, they get up at 4 o'clock every morning, they look in the mirror, there's a picture of Tokyo, there's a picture of the winner's podium, there's a picture of a gold medal, and there's the question mark there, are you going to do this? It's total focus for 4 years. And our writer says we'll still be running as a Christian in December 2021 if we fix our eyes on Jesus, him alone, and he's described here as the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. He's the pioneer. We've had that word again earlier in Hebrews. Do you remember the illustration of the Poseidon adventure? The boat that's tipped upside down, that's full of water. The survivors are trying to get to the top to rescue. They get to a place that's completely full of water. Do you remember that? The woman who's blind, but she was an Olympic swimmer, and she's got a heart condition, and she ties a rope around her waist, and she swims all the way through, gets to the other side, sadly eventually does die, but the others follow the rope. She's the pioneer. It means Jesus is the leader. He's the forerunner. He's the one that goes before us in the life of faith. That's what Christmas is about, isn't it? God takes a human body. He lives, he suffers, he dies the death we deserve. He comes through the grave to resurrection. He's the pioneer. He's gone. The rope is there. We follow behind him. He's the pioneer of our faith. He's the perfecter. He brings it to a successful conclusion. Verse 2, after the cross, he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. He's the successful concluder of the life of faith. He's in that finished position. His work is accepted on our behalf by the Father. He sits next to him. Fix your eyes, says our reader, on Jesus. Focus your attention on him every day of 2021. Incline your heart towards him. Clear all other distractions. Make him the focus of your heart and your gaze. I said earlier that there were two main branches, two main verbs, and he's already touching on this second one. The second verb is there in verse 3, which says, consider him. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So he's already started it, hasn't he? Fix your eyes on Jesus. Consider him. This verb is an imperative. So, I'm sorry, we've got DeAnton and Joseph. Now Izzy's 18. She'll never have to hear this again because you're free from this when you're 18. But there's a difference, isn't there, between, it'd be great if you could possibly tidy your room today. You heard that? Joseph, DeAnton, maybe? It'd be great if you could tidy your room today. Now, an imperative is tidy your room. It's a command. It comes with greater force. It's when mum has asked you too many times and it hasn't happened. It comes with the force of a command. That's what verse 3 is. You might not notice it in our English. Consider him. Sounds very gentle, doesn't it? It comes with the force of a command. It's an imperative verb. It's imperative that you consider Jesus. It's imperative that you fix your eyes on him, that you remove all other distractions. But it's coming not as a sergeant major, it's coming with a pastoral heart. Can you see that in verse 3? He doesn't want any of his readers to grow weary in this Christian life. He doesn't want them to lose heart. He doesn't want them to lose the race. It's Desmond Doss. He wants you to be at the finish line. And so he says, be inspired by those retired athletes of chapter 11, but supremely consider him. Consider Jesus, who endured such opposition, verse 2, who endured crucifixion, verse 3. He endured the shame, the ridicule, the disgrace of the cross. He did that as our pioneer, on our behalf, going through all of that for our good and for our merit. And he's the perfecter. He saw it through to the end to bring many sons and daughters to glory. Consider him. Fix your eyes on him. It's really good for us at the beginning of the year and throughout the year to be thinking, what's hindering me? What sin is entangling me? It's good to be thinking that, but it's got to be every bit as good, hasn't it, to think, how do I fix my eyes on Jesus in 2021? How will I consider him? How will I make that part of my daily life and existence? How might we have a way of clearing distractions and having eyes only for him? Let me just finish with just one sort of mention of, over the years I've enjoyed watching a bit of Bear Grylls with me and Henry and Esther and whatever, dropping people on an island for a couple of weeks, see how they survive, and occasionally he takes out, doesn't he, somebody into the wilderness, into the wild on his own. I think Barack Obama went with him, plus hundreds of Secret Service agents and whatever. But one that we really enjoyed, probably the last one we saw actually, was Warwick Davis, the actor who's in the Harry Potter films and other things. And there's an amazing moment. It was that sort of awful blending of something really humorous and really dangerous at the same time. We watched Warwick Davis come to this kind of ravine with two ropes going across it, and Bear Grylls was on the other side after he'd done his little safety talk and how you do it, and he had to stand on one rope and hold another rope, and Bear said, whatever you do as you move, just shuffling along, just keep your eyes on me. And he does. He starts off, and he's quite a comedian, sort of floating, he's going along and he's looking that way and he's talking away, and suddenly, halfway across, I don't know what happens, but on his feet sort of go, and then he immediately then swings forward and looks down and sees this sheer drop, and it's this kind of absolute terror, and as a viewer you see the terror, but then he starts this sort of weird thing like this that goes on forever, and we're streaming with laughter, presuming he's going to be safe because they've made the programme and so on, but there's that real mix of horror, and yet it looked really funny. And then you could just hear Bear on the other side, shouting to her, look at me, look at me, look at me, And then eventually he sort of just brings his eyes there, and with this sort of position, then the body sort of stabilises, and on he goes, and he gets to the other side. And yeah, it's well worth a watch if you haven't seen it. But our writer's saying to us, as we finish this morning, in these first 3 verses at the beginning of a new year, he's saying to you, my aim for you, as the readers of this pastor's writing, is that you are still running the race marked out for you with perseverance on the 31st of December 2021. And for you to do that, even though you finished Hebrews 11, he might say to us in January, consider them. Consider them, that they may propel you and inspire you to a wholehearted determination to run this race, to throw off everything that hinders. And supremely, consider him. Don't let your eyes leave the person of Jesus Christ, the pioneer who did all of that for you and his people, the perfecter, the one who's finished the job and ensures our gold medal. Consider him constantly, day in, day out. Look at me. Don't take your eyes from me. And then we'll see you on the 31st of December 2021, and we'll do it all again.